Hi, Sue Jeffers. Welcome to our continuing series, We the People. And we just love introducing you to all the candidates. And this is one of my favorites today, Tim Utes. Tim Utes, I am so excited to have you here.
How you doing? It's been a while, far too many weeks. Yes.
It's been far too long. I can't wait to hear how the campaign's going.
Yes. Well, let's get to some serious stuff first before we get to the campaign.
All right. You want to talk, go right for the meat of it.
Right for the meat. Like
okay.
We had discussed at the last taping, special session possibly happening, and you were betting that the courts wouldn't make a ruling on the unallotment and that everything would work out. And I was going, I'll bet you otherwise. I guess who won that bet? I won that bet.
And let's tell everyone that the courts ruled Governor Pawlenty's unallotment was used at the wrong time. And not that it was unconstitutional, that it was just used at the wrong time. And so what did the legislature do? They came back and ratified all his unallotment.
And anyway, they didn't have a choice. They didn't have a choice. Yeah. They didn't have a choice.
And we did end up, the end of the legislative session was as crazy and as insane as it always is. And I would like to talk about that final weekend, and then I'd like to talk about our one-day special session.
Okay.
So what was your perception of that final weekend of the 2010 legislative session?
So I watched it on the internet, on the legislative cable show. And I got on there Saturday afternoon concerned that they were going to get done on time, and it wasn't looking like it. And I turn it on, and there's this live broadcast of elevator music, and the camera is pointed at the ceiling of the House chamber, and it's playing elevator music because they had stopped session because the Speaker of the House had to go to a fundraiser over in the suburbs, and some other people had to do some running around. So they basically sat and canceled session. I thought that was interesting, especially on a Saturday when we had work to be done. They had to be done by midnight on Sunday. So Sunday night I tuned in, and I watched for about 2.5, 3 hours as, I don't think, 15 or 20 representatives gave their going away speeches.
For hours?
For literally hours. And I'm watching the clock tick by, and I'm thinking to myself, at some point they got to stop talking it down to get serious business because they're not done. What I didn't know is behind the scenes, some people were negotiating with the governor trying to come up with a settlement. So apparently they came up with a settlement at 11:55 in the evening, 5 minutes before they had to quit, and then there wasn't enough time to rewrite this agreement that was happening. So they ended up going into special session.
A one-day special session?
No, a 2-day special session.
Technically?
They started at They stopped session at midnight for the regular session. 12:01 a.m. they opened up the first day of special session. Till 12:15 they discussed the bills that they were going to pass, and then they closed down the House session officially for that day. And then at 7:30 in the morning they had day 2 of special session, and that went till 2 in the afternoon before they finally hammered out and everybody agreed to disagree and sign the law. So actually we had a 2-day special session in 1 day because our representatives across both political spectrums couldn't get their work done, and they jockeyed for positioning, and this has to stop. We need to get people like me into office that are going to say, let's deal with the business now and get it done so we can enjoy ourselves legitimately at the end of special session instead of running around scrambling like they did this year.
It was absolutely crazy that House File 1, to the agreement.
This is special session.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is why it's called House
File
File 1.
1.
All the others, what were we up to? 5,000?
There was 3864, I believe, is what the final number.
3864.
Yep, 38,864 bills introduced, yeah.
Unbelievable.
In 2 years, yeah.
Of which 3,700 of them we didn't need.
We didn't need, and I would say, yeah, I would agree with that.
And basically what you saw them do is kick the can down the road. Included in House File 1 is Obamacare.
Yes.
Signed into law by Governor Pawlenty, sitting on the books of Minnesota, just waiting for the next governor's signature.
The governor's signature.
Just
yes.
waiting for it. You saw education shifts like you wouldn't believe.
$2 billion. I believe it's almost $2 billion.
And you saw a boatload of bills that could never have passed and didn't pass during the legislative
Correct.
session, tucked into this hundreds of pages long House File 1.
Yep. And it was staggering. And the Constitution is very clear. You have one subject and one bill, and the title of that subject is in the bill, and that's it. There's no ambiguity about how this works. So legally, I'm going to say it again, legally, House File 1 is illegal and unconstitutional because it had a boatload of subjects and a boatload of solutions. They should have had a bill for each one of those subject matters that they were discussing, they should have had a separate bill and separate vote on it. So if anybody out there wants to sue the state of Minnesota and get House File 1 repealed, I'd suggest you get yourself an attorney and got some money, dig it out, and start suing. Because
And I'll help.
Because somebody should sue the state on House File 1 and have it repealed by the courts. Because that's the job of the courts, is to uphold the Constitution. Not legislate from the bench, but to uphold the Constitution. This is a perfect example when it should be, the courts should be and be ready to repeal. And we talk about unallotment, but this is clearly a violation of the Constitution when they put all these bills together.
Exactly. So if you think back over this last legislative session, do you have a favorite bill that you thought was the worst of the worst? It's hard to pick just one. I know it's hard.
Primary seatbelt law, but the most recent one was that just passed was the tattooing bill. No.
Which is effective July 1st.
Tomorrow, or Friday, yeah. And basically what that says is the state has determined that you as a parent don't have the authority or the right to allow your minor child to make a decision. Basically, that's fundamentally it. The government is telling us as citizens that they know what's best, and they rule over our children more than we rule over our children by stating that no child in Minnesota under 18 can get a tattoo, period, even with parental consent.
Unbelievable.
And the arrogance of the legislature, and frankly our governor for signing the bill, staggers my mind.
So do you think the gangs will, now that they know it's illegal under 18 to get a tattoo, do you think they'll stop tattooing themselves?
No, what do they care? They just do it on each other in the alley. They don't care.
I want to know which legislator came home to a child with a tattoo. So we had one legislator that came in, their kid must have come home with a tattoo, or their kid came home with the tinted windshields, and therefore we had to have legislation to protect everyone. It just goes on and on.
Just like the primary seatbelt law we talked about before. Way back 6 years ago, there was no seatbelt laws. And then the legislature says, well, we want to protect you from yourself. So we'll do a secondary offense, then it's a primary offense, then it's secondary ticket, and now it's a primary offense, a primary ticket. And there's hundreds of thousands of people in the state getting tickets.
It's a revenue raiser.
It's a revenue raiser. And I say, okay, if you guys are really serious about my health and safety, then take all that revenue and give it to the Salvation Army of the United Way. Because we don't need it. It's not about revenue, it's about our safety. But that ain't going to happen because they want the money.
The thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars that they're raising because people are not wearing seatbelts is amazing.
Right now, people should wear a seatbelt.
Yes.
I want to clear that up. Everybody in Minnesota, you should be wearing your seatbelt, but that's your decision, not the government mandate.
Exactly right. Exactly right. The lobbyists over there, that last weekend of the session, it was just incredible, the number of lobbyists. You actually had Tom Dewar, the head of the education union, the one we all see on TV in the commercials. Right. There's your union dues being spent. Okay, you had him sitting at the negotiating table with the legislators. How about we the people?
Why is he there? He
shouldn't be there.
Being there.
This
is the legislators. These are elected officials that are dealing with the budget, not a third party whoever. I don't care who they are.
Right.
Union leadership or not, they'd have no business being in there. If that's the guy who's sitting in these meetings, he has no business being in there.
Last time I checked, we didn't elect him.
No. Or anybody else for that matter outside of our legislators, and that's the ones that are supposed to be in these meetings.
And again, if you look at the end of the legislative session and look at the special session that we had, they kicked the problem down the road. We're still looking at a $10 billion deficit.
Real quickly, I was invited to the Anoka County Commissioners. They invited candidates to come out there, and they were talking about this $5 billion deficit, and they were budgeting for that, blah, blah, blah. And I raised my hand and said, excuse me, have you guys actually looked at this? $5 billion doesn't include inflation, doesn't include counting shifts, doesn't include reinstituting of the health care for singles. You get all that piled in there, and then you're looking at $8 to $10 billion. Are you guys budgeting for that? And they're looking at me with a stunned look like, no, I understood the 5 included all that.